Hello and welcome to Homescreen. I'm Will Jones and I head up design here at 11FS. Homescreen is brought to you by 11FS Pulse, which is our collection of over 4,000 user journeys from banks and fintechs all over the world. You can head over to pulse.11fs.com to request a free demo to see how others are solving their UX challenges. In today's episode, we are joined by Tiina Björk, Chief Design Officer at Anorak, to talk about how her and her team are building and designing an easier and more accessible way for customers to make informed decisions when choosing life insurance. How are you doing today, Tiina?
Very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm not too bad, and hopefully I did an okay job with pronouncing the name.
Yes, very good.
Okay, great. Well, let's get into the discussion, and let's start just by sort of introducing Anorak. What is it?
Sure. So Anorak is an online broker for life insurance, income protection, and critical illness cover. And the online service is really designed to do three key things. So it's there to help you learn. It delivers independent, personalized advice, and it also helps you buy the right cover for your needs. Behind the scenes, Anorak is a tech company, so we use technology to be able to do what we do. And from day one, our mission has been to really make life insurance and financial advice easily accessible for everybody. And as you mentioned, to really help people make informed decisions about, their life insurance purchase.
I mean, I'll be honest, I hadn't heard of Anorak, but in doing a little research for this show, I wish I had about a year ago when, as part of taking out a mortgage, I looked for life insurance, and it felt like an absolute minefield. So I'm really keen to dive into this today. But before we do that, can you tell us a little bit more about your specific role at Anorak?
Yes, so as you mentioned, my role is I'm Chief Design Officer here at Anorak. I joined the company a little over 4 years ago, and I joined as a total insurance outsider, but also as a startup newbie. So till then, I had only worked in creative agencies, and I spent most of my career as a creative director at AKQA, designing, digital products and services for household brands in my time there. At Anorak, I lead our internal team of product designers and copywriters. We've done everything in-house. So, in the early days, we named the company, we did brand identity, we did brand strategy, all that kind of stuff. Obviously, the big chunk of the work we do on an ongoing basis is around product design and product development, iterating, learning, testing and learning, all that kind of stuff. We also invest a lot in content. So my lovely copywriter writes everything from product copy to emails, marketing messages, and also we do a lot of long form content, which is that kind of more in-depth educational content. So whether it's articles or insurance guides and things like that. In terms of product, we have two products. So we got the consumer platform, which is what we are here to talk about today. But we also have our SaaS platform, and the design team, we work across both of them. We work closely with product managers and engineers, but then also we have a team of advisors in-house at Anorak. So these are the people who help customers over the phone. And the fact that we have those guys, what that means is from service design perspective, it creates that really interesting opportunity. How do you create that seamless online to offline experience for somebody who wants to, make that jump and prefers to talk to a human. But as you can see, design at Anorak is it's a core part of everything we do. And I always kind of say that, and it's probably because I joined so early, I feel like at Anorak design is really built in. It's not an add-on. And what that means is it really helps us stay customer focused in everything we do.
Yeah, I always think you can always tell when a company has sort of design at its heart, and it's not a sort of an add-on or just an execution thing. And sort of looking at Anorak, that definitely sort of borne out through the product experience, and it sounds like in the culture as well. Let's talk a bit about life insurance. Thinking broadly, do you think there's sort of a general anxiety surrounding life insurance? Obviously, it touches on some fairly difficult subjects or things that people don't want to think about day to day?
So we're very realistic. We understand how people feel about getting life insurance. It's one of those grown-up life admin jobs we know we should do, but we just keep putting it off. And I tend to say that I feel like it sits on people's should-do list, and I think it sits there just below write a will. Like, it's two of those things that, yes, it's important, but not quite motivated enough to do that. And then to your point as well, is like, yes, it's not a nice topic to think about, because what you need to go into the world of what would happen if I died. So obviously not very nice. But our job really is to put people at ease, and we are always very solution focused. And what we really want to do is we want to help people to tick it off their to-do list so that they can basically carry on living their life, but feeling confident that they have that plan in place, if anything happens.
Yeah, and I think you touched upon it there, but there are probably quite a few traditional barriers in regards to people actually acquiring life insurance. Do you think that's maybe sort of a lack of advice and education around the subject?
Yeah, I think so. So obviously for us who are close to the subject, we could say barriers are, it's been complicated, it's been paper-paced, it's been time-consuming. I don't think normal people necessarily even know that, because, it's a totally unknown topic for them. But the way we look at it is exactly what you just said, is like, yes, because people know when they should be looking into life insurance. They also know why that might be, so they have a clear trigger in mind. So it might be that they're buying a house like yourself, you're getting on that big mortgage, so you feel like, okay, I should probably somehow protect family or loved ones in case something happens. But it might be other things as well. It's like, it might be that you're getting married, or it might be that you're getting divorced. It might be that there's a baby on the way. And then also an interesting one is when somebody goes from, say, perm employment, where they might have had life insurance as a employee benefit, and then they go and they're freelance, and then suddenly, like, hang on, I have no protection in place. So there's these clear kind of life events that often trigger somebody to look into life insurance. And we know it's important. And then the question is, like, well, why is it that so many people don't have life insurance in place? And I think it's exactly what you just said. It is lack of knowledge. So lack of knowledge in terms of how life insurance works. What does it exactly cover? And even things like what the buying process is, because it's not like buying any general, insurance. We've never done it before. So it's one of those, like, it's such an unknown territory for most people. And based on our research, like, really people don't sometimes, like, often they don't even know how to get started, what to do to get started, where to go, or who to turn to. So that for us is like one of the biggest barriers. And then you touched on the advice side as well. So that obviously is very close to, what we do. And when our co-founders, when they started the company and they started looking into the reasons behind why there's millions of people in this country not protected, what they realized is that there is what we call an advice gap. So basically, we know that buying life insurance is quite complicated, and it's complicated because figuring out your future financial liabilities and how much cover you need, that can be quite tricky. So people do need advice. However, independent advice just hasn't been easily available. Nobody really talks about it. We don't know where to go for. Not many of us have financial advisor, at the other end of the phone. So that for us was then the opportunity, because we thought if we can really make financial advice accessible for everybody, we are really onto something, and we can really transform the way people buy life insurance. And then obviously the way we've gone about it is we built that technology which enables us to do that. And we really think that is almost like the missing link. And with advice, people can be reassured that they get the right cover in place. That for us is the key thing. Not just any cover, not just any life insurance. Make sure that you have the right cover for your needs.
And I think that's a really good mission. And I think when you're talking there, I was thinking around this being almost one of those things where you think it's going to be quite easy, and then you turn up to do it. There's parallels in other industries, like, say, opening a bank account or getting a mortgage, you go, oh, that'll be fine. I just need one of those. And then you turn up to whatever service you're using to compare it, or whoever you're talking to, and they start reading out a load of jargon that you have no idea what it means, or you have an inkling, but then a real suspicion that you might be getting the wrong thing. You think sort of almost like that jargon busting, or this idea that there is a different language being spoken than your average person actually speaks about it, is one of those main barriers as well.
Yes, absolutely. So I think, and this is probably applies to, like you say, insurance in general, but people do have that assumption that when they start on an insurance journey, that they're going to be faced with jargon, they're going to be faced with small print, they're going to be faced with exclusions that they didn't understand that were included in the policy, because the policy is written in such a complicated way. So that is obviously, like you say, a barrier. But then also what we've learned, that sometimes people might have had a bad experience with insurance in a different sector. So for example, like maybe you tried to claim something on your travel insurance, you thought it was covered, but turns out it wasn't, and you couldn't claim. Like all of these things, all of these other experiences basically create a bit of like mistrust in your mind, and people tend to be quite skeptical in terms of insurance in general. And obviously when you're just starting to look into life insurance, like that already kind of makes it feel quite off-putting. We are obviously trying to change that area as well. So the way we deliver our advice, it's always simple, it's always jargon free, and we are very keen to basically explain everything in everyday terms. So we never dumb things down. We explain things in everyday terms. We present all the facts, and we really clearly explain pros and cons along the way. That's the way we are tackling that part of the problem.
I mean, it sounds like the sort of copy of that is really important. We'll get on to sort of some of the user experience, the UX UI, and how that can be really important in the context of life insurance. But I guess if you're trying to make journeys simple and easy to understand for people, how do you ensure you provide customers, I guess, with the right amount of information while keeping it sort of engaging and slick?
Good question, and I think it's almost like, I feel like there's almost two parts to it. There's the right amount of information, but then there's also the right information. And I think over the years, what we've learned is, and again, this goes back to that level of knowledge. What we've learned is that people's level of knowledge when it comes to life insurance is low. So we have a saying at Anorak that we should always aim to meet people where they're at. And in the context of information, what that means is that there's no point assuming that people know a lot about life insurance and then talking to them in like more advanced terms. So we really want to make sure that we have first covered the basics and make sure that the customer understands the basics, and then we kind of continue from there. So that's kind of like, get the basics sorted and then move on. And then equally, I think at any part of the journey, obviously too much information is very off-putting. So what we try and do is that we only ever tell you what you need to know in that particular moment. Yeah. And we might do that by layering information, and then obviously using, CTAs to invite people to explore further, or find another piece of content, or really dig deeper into the content, or, the topic that they're interested in. That's the way we are trying to keep it kind of easy to take in, and not bombard them with too much.
Yeah, that sounds like a really good approach, because I think no one wants to be faced with this idea that they've got to do a lot of reading just to get something that they don't even want the hassle of going through getting in the first place. So contextualizing that, I imagine, is a big part of the journey.
Exactly. And it's really nice when we run user research session and we talk to people who've used Anorak. They often do mention exactly that. It's like, oh, the way you talk is so nice, and it's easy, and it's easy to understand. So obviously we are doing something right there.
And I'd imagine, referrals aside, there's also a ripple effect of when the people who use Anorak are more educated, friends and family of theirs, they then almost become advocates to them of exactly what you need to understand about life insurance and things. So there's probably an uplift beyond just your immediate user base and an understanding of this topic. I think that's a great point to have a look at Anorak's sort of initial life insurance journey. So we'll put that up on screen. It'd be great to hear firstly about what's happening on screen, some context of the journey, but also how you go about establishing sort of the right visual language for this sort of assessment tool.
So this here is our life insurance landing page, and as I mentioned, the purpose really here is to start showing user how life insurance works. We, like here you see, we start from the basics. We start answering those questions that we know that are on real people's mind. Then we go and start talking more about in more concrete terms, like, okay, fine, life insurance pays out a lump sum, but what exactly is it for? So we're really trying to make it more concrete in people's mind, because sometimes they might come here with one thing in mind. So it might be a mortgage, or it might be in the other end of the spectrum. It might be like, I just want to make sure that my family has enough money to pay my funeral costs. So we are creating that connection, but already then making it, helping them understand more than they did when they first arrived. This is then the other way to kind of where we are doing like almost like the next level of personalized content, if you will. So we can start talking to people depending on their segment. So we created content that talks to couples, parents, single parents, homeowners, renters, for example. Like, why is it that they should be, what are the important things to keep in mind when considering life insurance? And again, here you're opening people's eyes, because you're like, well, hang on, I'm in a couple, I'm also self-employed, so there's a lot to take in, and we're really again trying to help people understand what are the key decisions they should be making. And then when we go further, that's when we obviously start to talk about like, okay, we're thinking, okay, people are like, fine, I've got it, I need life insurance, but then the question is, how much cover do I need? And this is really where Anorak comes in. So we are here to work it out for you. We talk about what exactly you get with Anorak, which is the independent advice, the whole market quotes, and then, as I said, the right cover for you. So those are the kind of the key parts of the value proposition. And if we then go and start the assessment, so get your cover calculation. So this is the assessment. So it's basically a set of questions about your life, your family, finances. We've kept this super simple. So we've kind of gone with this because we didn't want to have a long form, because we all know how we feel when we are faced with a long form. So rather we've gone more with this kind of a one question or one theme per screen, and that keeps it really quite light and smooth, and also it works really nicely on the mobile as well. The other things that we wanted to do with this assessment is our goal was always that you should be able to do it on your phone, on the bus, without needing any documentation handy. And then you might be interested in figuring out like why are we asking these particular questions? And that's always been driven by what the Anorak engine needs in order to be able to build that recommendation and then get the quotes from the insurers. So that's kind of been the driver behind the particular questions. Luckily for us, people do expect to be asked these kind of questions. So the funnel has performed as expected, I think it's fair to say. And the other thing is what we tried to do, like I said, if you are on that bus, like how can we help remove barriers between beginning of the assessment and finishing the assessment? And one way to do that is, for example, when the question is something a bit more unfamiliar, I think it's actually coming soon, is like when we say how much university fees are per child. Say you have a brand new baby, you might not know that. And what we are hoping, what we are trying to help you so that you don't have to go and Google it. Here, what we do is we actually show UK averages. So you can take that, type that in, and basically move on. Similarly, when you get to say your mortgage details, we know there's many different things we ask. We're very aware that you're not going to remember that, all of it. So we say it's totally fine to estimate, and then you can basically come back to your profile and update any information later. but we are really trying to kind of remove the friction and get them to see that initial recommendation as smoothly as possible.
I imagine it's something that you're constantly refining and looking at the data from, just to see when you do get drop-offs, which of those questions aren't giving someone enough of a hint, or maybe you feel like they haven't got it out.
Yeah, exactly. That's something we keep on top of all the time. And sometimes the changes we might make are super small. Like it might be just like reframing the question, for example, and something like that already might make an impact. We are also we are currently working on how might be better guide users, how might be better explain why we are asking a particular question. So there's still much more to do, but like I said, it is performing pretty well.
And I think I love the little the glasses looking around during this journey. I think it makes a big difference when you have like a playful element into something that's quite serious. So I'd imagine there's a tone to strike there, so it's not too distracting.
Yeah, well, they're our geeky classes because Anorak. We are called Anorak because we are the life insurance experts. So we are all geeks in our own kind of disciplines, and that's why there's that little hint of the geekiness there.
We saw at the end of the journey there, when you're asking the user to input sort of their monthly expenses, there's sort of a slider available instead of sort of free text field or a calculator or anything like that. I know that's often like the hardest thing for someone to try and estimate. What was sort of the thought process behind that? And how important is it to the actual data that you captured?
Well, the thought process was exactly what you just mentioned. So when we designed the screen, the assumption was that it's near impossible for somebody to know their household monthly expenses off top of their head when they're on the bus. Yeah. So we thought, how might we then help them and basically stop that being a massive drop-off point? So what that slider shows is the Anorak engine estimates what we think your monthly expenses might be. And the way the estimation is done, obviously I'm simplifying, but it uses your income, your postcode and ONS data to basically create that estimation. And the idea being is like you land on that screen and you will see that number, and obviously you'll probably have a bit of a reaction. Hopefully the reaction is, okay, that's pretty much in the right ballpark, I will leave it. However, if you're like, no, I spend much more than that, you can then easily use the slider to either increase the number or decrease the number. But again, it's just yet another way for us to remove the barriers and just get you, moving along on that journey.
Yeah.
And again, you can then go and, update your profile later if you're like, okay, hang on, I'm now going to actually go and check or, check my bank app or whatever, or maybe you have a spreadsheet, I don't know, but there's different ways, but we just need again an estimate at this point.
I think that's looking at that journey, like making an affordance is where you are allowed to make mistakes at this point. You're just going to get through it is really different, it feels to me, compared to what people are used to filling in with, say, a traditional insurance company or a bank account. You feel like everything's final, and you almost feel like you're going to, if you've accidentally lied, you're going to get into trouble for it. That's the sense people have, and I really think through a lot of the, not just the language you're using, but even the little characters on the first screen we looked at. I think there's a real sense of it being more human and a bit more like forgiving and friendly. And I know sometimes putting together like illustration styles like that, they can come out feeling a bit sort of stock. But actually, I really like the styles that you've got. They feel quite unique. I'd love to know a bit more about the thoughts behind the art direction of that.
Yeah. So this is a topic close to my heart. But obviously, yes, we wanted the brand personality. We wanted it to very much feel human because it is a very human thing to do. It's not a transactional journey, even though yes, there's a purchase at the end. But there's so many things to think about, and those things, they either touch, they touch your life, they touch your loved ones and your family's life. So the human element is really important to us. But then in terms of how we would like people to see our brand, that's where that geekiness comes to play a little bit again. It's like, we are basically your friendly life insurance experts. we work for you. We don't work for the insurance. We are here to make sure that you get that right cover in place, and we are your companion. We guide you through that journey. And the way we almost approach it is like, we are like a good mentor. Like we openly share our expertise in order to help you. So that's the feeling. That's how we would like people to feel about the brand when they first land there. Because obviously they, like you said, we are not exactly a household brand yet. So it needs to feel, we would like them to feel like I've come to the right place. These people, Anorak, seem to know life insurance inside out. They're gonna be able to help me. That's kind of the feeling. And the illustrations itself. So we haven't done those in house. We've had a very talented illustrator working on them, but again, we chose her because the style is quite unique.
Yeah.
And again, there's something about it. They're warm. They are warm and they're friendly. But somehow, again, I think they add on to that little bit of that geekiness, just the way, they're executed. And we use them throughout. So obviously across the website and the service, but then obviously in our marketing assets as well.
And we talk about this at 11th a little bit. When you have sort of a really nice, strong brand asset like your illustrations or like a really strong tone of voice, there's often the need to tone that down at points that are really functional, or I guess drive that up at moments where it's like you've completed something or you need reassurance. Is that sort of a conscious choice to just sort of distill that down to just a little bit of the eyes looking around during the
So that's an interesting topic, and again, this is also what we talk about a lot at Anorak, is like, how much of a personality should we have? And we've gone, like, in terms of even the tone of voice, like, it is very straightforward, because it's like, it's the geek in us. We are like, we want to be straight talking. Like, we say things the way they are. So when we talk about death, we say death. We don't like dance around, the difficult topics, because we need to talk about them, but we want to put you at ease. So there's a lot of that as well. And obviously what the topic is very serious. So when we get to things like when we are talking about your particular circumstances and when we are delivering the advice, we are obviously very matter of fact. We never joke about things in that part of the journey. That's obviously given. But at the same time, we can sometimes joke about ourselves being the geek. So there's just like you say, it's like there's time and place when you can be more lighthearted. And then there's a time and place when you just like, you're super focused. You're just delivering what the user needs to know, and there's nothing comes in the way of that. But it's quite interesting, because you can really look at the end-to-end journey, and you can think about even from tone of voice point of view, is like, you might start a little bit lighthearted, more friendlier, then it kind of tones down. But then when you're like, well, now I need to send a CRM email again, that could say something that is a little bit more unexpected maybe. That's the other thing, is like we are really, and that's why user research is super important for us, because we're like, we want to really understand the kind of language people use, the real questions they have on their mind. So what I think is fascinating is like somebody starting life insurance journey, they know nothing, they haven't even started, and the first question on their mind might be, but is it going to pay out? Like they jump to the end. And then really to make that connection, like you want to be answering that question, because that's when you're creating value, and you're like, the customer feels like, okay, they get me. They're not expecting me to learn things in the right order. They get me, and they're already answering my questions.
Yeah, it's definitely, I guess, like a conversation. Where do you bring up the more difficult things, and how do you reassure someone at the start and go, I'm really sorry, we're going to have to talk about death now, but let's go to these questions.
Yeah.
And I think it's really interesting to see that sort of borne out in a digital experience. And I'd imagine, thinking about sort of the advice you give outside of that journey, that's also got to be carefully considered. I think that's a really good point to bring up our next journey to have a look through. So in terms of sort of conveying complicated information in a sort of simple, accessible way, I guess in this advice section, what was some of the key things you focused on in how this is presented?
So one of the first things we did is we obviously looked at what, the advice as a whole, what is it that we need to deliver, and how can we guide the user through that part of the process. And the way we've done it is we've split this section into 4 key areas. So we have needs, cover, quotes, and apply. And the reason behind those 4 is because they're basically the key milestones, the key decision points in order for somebody to decide what kind of life insurance they're going to buy. And this first page here, the purpose of this is to really help the user understand their cover needs. And obviously what this page is presenting is the cover calculation. So we are showing what we have calculated your life insurance needs to be. And we've split it, and again, we want to be very concrete. So we've split it into 2 sections. So we have debts, which is basically your mortgage, and it could be other loans if you had some. And then you have your future expenses. So this is, again, what the engine is estimating your household expenses to be, your university fees to be. And this is really where the penny starts to drop, when we show the user something that they haven't really even thought about, That's when they're going like, okay, Anorak has clearly thought about everything. I'm in safe hands. And then we obviously draw a very clear conclusion. We think you need life insurance. You need this much, and you need it for this many years, yeah? Also, what we do, if we think you don't need life insurance, we say so. We might say, based on everything you've just told us, we don't think in your current situation, you don't need life insurance. And that's that, Yes, you can still, obviously, you can explore further. Maybe you know something we don't know. And then, you can still continue the journey, or you can talk to one of our advisors. But this is one of the key things for us, is like, we show you how much life insurance you need, if any, And that isn't, again, it's one way to create trust and that's because it's all needs based. If there's no need, we don't want to sell you something.
I think that presumably for the users that get that result is a huge sort of point of difference, that then when they do need life insurance, they believe you'll come back with the truth and should see returning users, I guess.
Exactly, absolutely. This page then, so this is now you're on the cover page. So the purpose of this screen is to then help you choose the cover level that you want to buy. And the way we are doing this is we're basically showing the user options. The first one here, this first card, that shows you the recommended cover, and all the numbers, the amount and the term and the type, it matches what you saw on that needs page. But because people like options, obviously we all do, we are all showing you 2 other options. So one of them is extra cover. And when you see it here, you'll see that the cover amount is much larger. And then we explain you why that is. And that is because if you decide to buy that cover, what it means is that it will basically cover all the family's future expenses. And it would mean that your partner wouldn't necessarily have to go to work if they didn't want to. And then equally, this reduced cover, the cover amount is smaller, as is the monthly premium, but be careful. If you go with this one, it will only pay for the mortgage. It doesn't cover any of the future expenses. So again, in very concrete terms, we are giving the user options, but we really want to make sure that they understand then what the impact would be, depending on what they choose, and again, helping them make those informed decisions.
Have you found that there's sort of an optimum number of options that people like to see? Because I think obviously in lots of situations, there's seeing more than one makes you feel like you've made a choice rather than being sort of forced into whatever's being presented. But I guess be interested to see what you think on that.
Yeah, so what we've kind of gone, so the way we've gone about it is obviously we have that recommended one, and then we have one option that is bigger cover and one that is less cover. So that felt kind of like, okay, you're giving them options. Yeah. But then we also have this, what you see here. So you can use any of those cover options as a starting point, and then you can go and edit. And there's 2 key reasons based on what we've learned, is why somebody might want to edit. You might want to round it up, because we all like nice, even round numbers. Or you might just want to add a lump sum. So you might have something in mind and you're like, well, actually, Anorak, I totally understand why you're recommending that amount, but I just want to add an extra 20k on top of it. So this is where they can do that. And then basically once they're happy, okay, this is the cover I now want to go and buy, they can then go and view the quotes. And then it's getting the quotes. And what we show here is basically what the engine does. It matches you with the most suitable policies from whole market of insurers. So rather than showing a long list of quotes, like say a price comparison websites do, we only show the ones that we think are really suitable for you. And there's a lot of kind of complex rating happens in the background, and so the policies here are shown in suitability order. It's obviously very straightforward. You can look at claims rate, you see the monthly prices. For each of these, you can dig deeper, you can go and read the policy details, because we feel like this is the time when somebody's like, well, actually, I got all my other insurance with Aviva, I'm going to go and look into what Aviva life insurance looks like. And this is where we've rewritten all of these. So because we know policy documents can be very complicated, so the purpose of this is really highlight the most important aspects of that policy. So what's included, what exclusions are there, things like that. And then, this particular thing here shows, because this would be a decreasing policy. So what this tool shows is how decreasing policy would pay out depending on when you died. And this creates yet again one of those aha moments, like, oh, I hadn't realized that a decreasing cover means that if I die, 22 years into my 25-year term, that actually the payout is much smaller. Often that is in line with your mortgage repayments. Yeah. Obviously it makes sense, but still seeing it in this way it really makes it clear.
Finding that consumers understand the details of a policy better when visuals are shown to them, I think that's a really great example of it. How do you almost select which elements need visualizing or having a little bit more of a tool to them? Because obviously the policy details are long, and if you're bringing everything to life, that then becomes a point of friction rather than a point of rather than a solution.
Yeah. So it does require obviously some careful consideration, because again, if you choose to use visuals everywhere, then they kind of lose the impact. But things like explaining or comparing, this is how level cover pays out versus this is how decreasing cover pays out. So again, it's like a simple graph will tell so much more than a written paragraph, or it very well supports that. So it's really picking those areas where we think a visual will add to the storytelling. And then obviously, because it is online, it is these kind of little interactive tools. We do similar thing when in an income section journey where we are explaining waiting period, i.e. the moment in time when you become ill and when it starts to pay. So again, showing that in an interactive way, it really helps people understand, like, okay, that's how it works. I get it now.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably parallels to pull from other industries, but where there's almost a scenario to play out, if you can play that out and see the effects of it, obviously it fills people with a lot more, I guess, reassurance, or at least feeling the knowledge of they've made a connection with exactly what will happen at the point that they use this.
Exactly, and that graph we were just looking at there, where it shows you that decreasing cover, the life events that we've dotted on that timeline, they are your family's life events. So it'll tell you when you are likely to retire. It tells you when your mortgage is paid off. It tells you when your child is finishing, obviously it's estimated, but when they're finishing university, for example. So it really is personalized, that whole experience.
It reminds me of in the UK we have the game of life, where you can go round and you can get married and you put different people in your car. It's almost just the graph form of that, where you can see the rest of of your existence play out a little bit, which I guess is a little bit odd, if it is, even though it's very useful. Thank you so much for talking through those journeys. I'd love to hear a little bit around, if you're able to talk about this, where you're hoping to take Anorak in the future, or what you hope the future holds for you as a company.
So our kind of the company vision really is to build the world's smartest life insurance companion. And what that means is that, yes, what we want to do first. We want to help you get protected, yeah? So that's the first step. But beyond that, what we then want to do over the years, when your life changes, we want to make sure that you stay protected. So what the service will do in the future, it will regularly, nudge you to come back, so we can perform almost like a life insurance checkup to make sure, has something changed? Has your family setup changed? Your income, mortgage, things like that. So it's really is this idea of we want to create long-term relationship. It's not a transactional in and out journey. It's really something that we're gonna stay in your life, and we got your back basically, and we want to make sure that you and your loved ones stay protected.
I think that's the trick, isn't it? Forming a longer term relationship, or understanding the wider job to be done of why someone's getting insured, and then knowing all of the surrounding products, services and advice that they're going to need.
Yeah, absolutely. And when it comes to life insurance, because it is very different to any other type of insurance, so you tend to kind of buy it once. You don't go and change insurers. Like, that's not just the way. It's not necessary. But if you do, when you bought it, that was your first flat, you had one child, and then suddenly you're on your third house and you have 3 children, so the needs have changed, but you might not think about it. So that's why, again, I think we can really then deliver that service and help you throughout your life basically.
And I guess this question might be the same thing phrased a different way, but are there any specific concrete things in the pipeline, or any developments that you're excited to be rolling out to the product?
Well, being the geeks we are, we've been recently very excited about income protection. So I don't know if you have income protection, but that's basically the insurance product we should all have. So income protection pays if you become too ill to work, and basically you lose your income, and it pays, like, it's beyond your sick pay basically. So that's why it's like all of us should have it. And interestingly, the last 18 months have made many people think about it. Income protection, however, it's even less known product in the market. So we've been doing a lot of research in terms of, again, what are the trigger points? Why are people looking into life insurance? What are their goals and motivations? What's their level of knowledge? And we are really looking into the online service. How can we improve that for the people looking for income protection? What kind of content can we create, again, to educate them, to nudge them, all of these things. But really that's the next focus, income protection. That's
great to hear. And there's probably going to be a lot of people watching this thinking now, I don't have income protection, should I be worried? And maybe that's then future Anorak customers. So
yes.
Again, thank you for that. And just before we wrap up, we're going to quickly take a look at Pulse's Pick of the Week.
Our Pulse Pick of the Week goes to Mox's impressive card management journey. From within the engaging UI, users can easily change their PIN, lock the card, and set spending limits. Best of all, though, is the unique ability customers have to quickly flip spending between their debit and credit accounts whilst using the same all-in-one card. We love seeing this level of control, especially when it's so quick and easy. Pulse is our collection of over 4,000 user journeys from banks and fintechs from all over the world. So head over to pulse.11fs.com to request a free demo to see how others are solving their UX challenges.
Thanks for watching today's show. If you want to see more journeys like this, head over to pulse.11fs.com to find out more and to catch up on Homescreen episodes. And if people want to find out more about you, Tiina, where can they get in touch to find you?
Well, obviously, if you're looking into life insurance or income protection, you should check out anorak.life.
Brilliant, thank you.